Welcome to this lecture where I'll teach you how to manipulate layers in Photoshop CC 2019 and above. In case you're using any other older version, please see the next lecture because these clips have conflicting hotkeys and advice. Okay, a few lectures ago we talked about how this latest edition of the program constrains your layers aspect ratio by default. This is done in order to prevent any distorting. The only exception is with regards to vectors, i.e. shape layers. With them you have complete freedom. As you can see, I can do whatever I want with it and I'm not using any hotkeys. But here's something interesting. I'll place this rectangle in a group by using Ctrl-G. Next, I'll hit Ctrl-T and I'll grab any handle. As I drag, notice my aspect ratio is constrained. This is somewhat surprising because we know shape layers should be exempt from this behavior. But because we included it into a group, it's now being protected by the program, so that's something to be aware of. In most cases, you'll want to resize things dramatically. To make your life easier, grab a handle but hold down Alt. This will resize the element on all sides and it's a much faster way to work, especially when you're dealing with huge photos the likes of 5000 by 4000 and you only want them down at 700 by 600 pixels. So just hold down Alt while dragging, preferably from a corner. Now let's focus on this design where we have two lovely cards. Here the same thing happens. When we try to resize through Ctrl-T, everything is adjusted proportionally. The way you override it is through the Shift key. If you hold it and drag, you get complete editing capabilities, and of course you can combine Alt and Shift. As you can see, not only do I have complete freedom, but the changes are swift because the card gets resized on all parts. When you want to discard your changes, just hit the Escape key. Here's another type of manipulation you're likely to need: flipping layers. This is part of the Transform command, which should not be confused with Free Transform. To clear things up, go to the top menu and hit Edit. Here you can see we have two possible actions: Free Transform, which has the hotkey Ctrl-T, and Transform, which has several menu items, including Flip Horizontal and Flip Vertical, but nobody actually uses this menu. Instead, here's what I recommend. You use Ctrl-T as always, but then you right-click. This list shows all those items that we previously saw in the Edit Transform menu. Choose Flip Vertical, and we've just dropped this card on its head. Right-click again, and this time choose Flip Horizontal. Now the design is mirrored. This is how you're supposed to work. Don't waste time in the Edit menu. Instead, use Ctrl-T and then right-click to access a bunch of Transform commands. Now, you might experience something strange. Whilst in Free Transform mode, you might go to the side and right-click only to find you've somehow left Editing mode. You didn't hit Enter by mistake, nor did you use the check mark from the options bar. This is a new behavior Adobe introduced in Photoshop CC 2019. When you're in Free Transform mode, you can right-click to obtain that list only in a certain radius. Your mouse cursor has to be fairly close to the element in question. The foolproof method is to right-click inside the group, but you can also do this. To test the range, simply right-click a bunch of times while moving further and further away. As you can see, at a certain point, the list no longer appears and the handles go away, meaning we've left Free Transform mode. I can't say I'm in love with this change in behavior. For over 10 years, I've clicked anywhere on the canvas and the list showed up, but now this seems the new way to go. Okay, let me show you some of my favorite Transform commands from that list because some of them really don't deserve our attention. The one that I like the most is Perspective. To enable it, as always, use Ctrl-T and then right-click. Be aware that when you select any of these actions, apparently nothing happens. What you have to do is grab any handle and start to play with it. I'll use this one from the bottom right side and I'll drag outwards. This will make the card seem like it's placed on a table. We'll actually use this technique later on in the course when we'll design a business card and we'll place it on the floor in a realistic way. What's great is that each handle will perform a different type of transformation and you can obtain all sorts of effects. For example, I'll hit Escape to reset and I'll go through the motions again. Only this time I'll drag the bottom left handle straight down. Hit Enter and use the Alt-Drag technique to create two other copies and place them like pieces of domino. In just a few actions, you've managed to create something lovely. Let me undo a few times because I want you to be aware of something. Here's the scenario. You right-click and you choose perspective, right? You adjust it a little bit, but now you want to resize the card. If you move to another handle, you won't be able to shrink it down because you're in perspective mode. That's why when you right-click, you get Free Transform at the top of the list. Basically, it's there exactly for these types of situations. Click it and now you can resize as needed. So that's how you go back and forth between various transformation modes from that list. Moving on, another interesting action is Distort. This does exactly what it says. It allows you to dramatically modify the shape with no strings attached. This can yield some interesting effects too. It's all a matter of knowing what you want to achieve. Experienced Photoshop users like to use the Distort command by way of a hotkey. Let me show you how that works. First, hit Escape so we can start fresh. Hit Ctrl-T and now move your cursor over a handle. Initially, you'll see this resize symbol, but now hold down the Control key. This white arrow signifies that you've enabled Distort mode. Drag and have fun. When you're done with your distorting, release the Control key and continue to resize if that's what you want to do. So the Control key saves you a lot of back and forth because it enables Distort mode on the fly. The final transformation that I want to present is Warp. That's not available for groups, but you can choose the base layer to test it out. I'll do something better though. I'll convert this folder into a smart object so you can see a real-world application of the Warp command. We'll talk about smart objects thoroughly at a later point in the course. Ctrl-T, right-click, and Warp. A grid is going to show up, and this will allow you to bend certain parts of the design. If I pull down these two parts, you can see how the whole bottom part curves. Repeat the process for the top side, and you can imagine this is a card that's being squeezed. To gain more control, you can also use these handles. I can't say this comes in handy in loads of projects, but overall these transformations are a great addition to your Photoshop skills. Now it's your turn. Take it step by step and see how you do. Let me know if you agree. I think perspective is the best one from the lot. Have fun with it.